Hi everyone, this is Julie Bruns. Welcome to the Peace and Possibilities podcast. I want you to thrive and be happy, peaceful, and content, no matter where you are on your journey. This podcast shares stories that will show you how it can be done, no matter what your circumstances. You'll be inspired and come away with a new spark of an idea. Never forget, anything is possible. New episodes are released every Wednesday. Subscribe, rate us, and leave us a review. This helps others find our content and get happier sooner. To possibility and beyond. Welcome, everyone. My guest this week is Taryn Abrahams. And Taryn and I were introduced by James Gavin, and he is a mutual acquaintance. I don't know how close you guys are, Taryn, but I met him through a networking group that I'm part of called V50.
Mm-hmm.
And just to give it a little shout out to V50, it's an awesome networking group. I don't know if you've been or not, but I was introduced to them back in September or October, and an awesome group of people. And the guys that run it, Alan and Lane, are just super genuine, awesome people. And so if anyone is listening to this and like, what's V50? So go to V50's website and check it out. It's basically just an awesome group of people helping other people. And they're just, everyone's in all different kinds of businesses. And it's like, how can we connect you and help you with your business? And they're all just making the world a little bit better of a place. So I just wanted to give a shout out. I wasn't expecting to do that, but as long as everyone's listening. So thanks for joining me, Taryn. How are you?
Yes, thank you for having me, Julie. It's a pleasure to be here. And yes, I highly recommend that group. I've only had one experience. Unfortunately, my father passed last month, so kind of things fell off the map a little bit for me, but that is definitely on my radar for 2021. And I'm hearing some really great feedback from people that are having some good experiences with it. So highly recommended.
I really recommend it. Sorry to hear about your dad. And
thank you.
Several years ago too. It's a tough time. So the reason James introduced me to you is because, well, the premise of this podcast is, do you love what you do? And do you want to tell other people how you got there? And he said, Julie, this Taryn is great for that because she does. So I don't know how you guys met, but he said, yes, she loves what she does. And here's her name. And so I was like, all right, let me talk to her. So that's why you're here.
Yeah, I met James actually in a BNI meeting, and we just stayed connected. I was a guest at the BNI group, and we just managed to stay connected. He's a great connector.
Yeah.
He truly cares about his clients. He's a fantastic person to know.
What's BNI for those people that don't know what that acronym is? BNI.
Oh, what is it? Business National. You know what? I don't know what it's called. I'm not a member of BNI, but I know that it is a global network that people join. It's a network to grow your business.
Okay.
It's something that meets weekly.
Okay.
Again, I'm not a member of BNI, but I've had a lot of experience as a guest at BNI meetings. Okay. So if anyone's looking for creative ways to get connected, that might be a network to look into. I don't know what it stands for, actually, but if you go to Google and you put BNI, I'm pretty confident you'll find it. It's a huge network. Yeah.
So tell me, I know a little bit about what you do because we chatted a little bit weeks ago, but I know that you had like a squiggly path to where you are now.
Yes.
So what do you do now? And what did you think you wanted to do when you were in school and graduating and like, I want to do this when I grow up? And is it the same thing you're doing now? Yeah.
And you notice as you're asking me this question, I have a huge smile on my face because it's something I have such joy discussing because my story is one that should be shared because I think a lot of people wake up sometimes and think, how the hell did I get here? Why am I here? Am I doing the work that really I want to be doing? So currently, in the last couple of years, I started a business called Empower Behavioral Services. Leveraging my experience as a psychotherapist, I created a business to help companies, small and large, identify and address barriers within their culture. And I create customized content and training programs designed to create the social change that they're looking to create within their people. So if they struggle with communicating with each other, if there's weaknesses in the leadership, if there's high turnover in the company, someone like me would help that company identify what barriers are happening within the business that are causing these people to leave, that are causing these issues. And I create meaningful content and have meaningful discussions with their HR department and leadership to figure out ways to create positive change in their behaviors. What I take pride in is helping companies create that aha moment. It's how do I get people to turn the light bulb on between, what the problems they're experiencing and the behaviors that are causing that sort of backlash. And once you can get someone to create that aha moment, it's like magic. Oh. It really is magic. And that to me is what is really needed and required to make any type of change, whether it's looking to make a change within yourself or making a systemic change within the business. You got to know the root before you decide on a solution.
I live for those aha moments. And that's why I do what I do, because you never know who you're going to talk to or what one thing you're going to hear. I mean, I read a lot. I'm sure you've read a lot. And I know that you have a lot of education too. You can read it one day and it's not going to sit with you the same way. And the next day, someone else might say the exact same thing that you read the day before. And you're like, oh, I finally get it. And then
that's so true.
Like, you can't unknow it anymore. And then all of a sudden, like your life is different, even though you heard it 6 weeks ago or yesterday. It's like, no, now I got it today. It landed. And now I'm going to change the way I'm thinking about it or do something about it or whatever it is. But that's why I love having conversations with people, because you just never know what you're going to learn or hear or what's going to land with you. That's awesome.
It's very true. And I think sometimes what makes training really impactful is that the facilitator or the trainer, instead of just presenting the information, really relate it to the business and relate it to the people in the room. And when you can really make it relatable like that, that's again, when that light bulb goes off. Yep. And that's what really kind of starts that momentum that creates that positive change. Mm-hmm. And what's really interesting, and this is the part I was hoping, really excited to highlight on your podcast, is I didn't wake up and decide to go to school for this. Mm-hmm. This was sort of something that happened very organically in my life. My career started off as a psychotherapist, and I have a master's degree in marriage and family therapy, and I practiced for many years in private practice. And I had to pivot in my own personal life. I actually went through a divorce and found myself being a single mom with a 1-year-old. And I just didn't feel emotionally strong enough to be able to help my couples and families. So I felt like it was time to kind of take a little bit of a break from practicing. And during that break, I ended up in sales and business development, working for some very large medical device companies. And I made a great living. I was able to support my daughter, who again was 1 at the time. And I was able to, leverage my experience in terms of working with couples and families and apply that to the business world. Whether it's uncovering objections, identifying pain points, all those conversations are extremely important in the sales arena. But what ended up happening is I woke up 10 years later feeling extremely unfulfilled. And looking back, I was also pretty depressed about it as well. Mm-hmm. I just felt like I really kind of veered off so much from where I wanted to be in terms of helping people as a therapist. Yeah. That I just felt very unfulfilled in the work that I was doing. And so I was really kind of in a rut and I didn't know what to do. And honestly, it was the Me Too movement back in 2017 that created my aha moment. I started to realize, oh my gosh, there is such a need for better training around the topics of harassment. Insanity is doing the same thing over again, expecting different results, and we want to minimize the risk, yet the numbers keep going up, and our trainings are still, very basic. They're very compliance-based. Yeah. They help just really check a box. They're not really focused on creating any type of social change. So I thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna just start putting some content together and see what sticks, which ultimately led me to creating my business, my LLC. I remember the first meeting I went to for networking, I almost walked in apologetic, should I be here? Do I belong here? And I want the audience who's listening to really understand that sometimes we don't always know our path. those years that I had in corporate doing those, sales roles, even though I didn't feel fulfilled, those years coupled with my experience as a therapist is what really prepared me for what I'm doing today.
Yep.
There were no accidents. Right. And I think if somebody would have told that to me when I was in those, years working in sales, that hold on tight, because this doesn't mean this is your end point. That this, you are where you are meant to be.
Yes.
So for anyone who's
right. Right. No, people don't, you want to know the future, but then you don't, but you think I'm in this, but you're right. You wouldn't be good as doing what you're doing now. You wouldn't be able to offer everything you're offering. You wouldn't have had that experience. I'm the same way. Like I have this corporate experience, and I wouldn't be able to know what I know about working and living in corporate and the people walking in that office and how they're feeling if I had never been feeling that way.
Exactly.
Right? You have the solution to this problem. Yes. But it's so easy not to see it that way. Of course, now looking back, you're like hindsight. Okay, of course it was all.
Hindsight's always 20/20. Yeah. But if I could go back to my younger self, that's what I would tell myself is don't get too caught up in your head and question why you are where you are. You're meant to be where you're meant to be. And your path isn't always clear. Sometimes you have to trust God or your higher power or something bigger than yourself to trust that you are exactly where you need to be.
Yeah.
And again, like you just said, Julie, if it wasn't for those years of experience in corporate, I wouldn't have had the insight to create my business because I wasn't in corporate. I was stuck in an office providing therapeutic services. So it was a whole different experience. But I realized that once I was able to find something that brought passion to me, something that really got me excited, it didn't feel like work anymore. Honestly, it didn't feel like work anymore. And I think that's the big piece here is really listen to yourself. Ask yourself what gets you excited and what gets you passionate and what gets you motivated and really honor that. Whether it's I want to have a job or a career where I can be there for my kids when they get home from school, or I want a job that's going to allow me the flexibility to have a side gig. I don't know what that looks like, but you can't achieve it until you know what you want. True. And anything is possible. I really believe that, especially now in the gig economy. I have to say COVID, the silver lining has redefined how we get work done. Which has allowed us to do so many more things in our day, not just work. So, I think really kind of being very laser focused on what brings you joy and try to turn that into a passion. So, and that's inadvertently, that's kind of what I did.
Yeah, it is. Did you, when you make a very good point. You started to create content. You didn't have the business idea yet. You're just like, no, I see a need. I'm going to start to create some content and see what sticks. So you started to solve a problem, which is a really big theme on this podcast. Like, what can I do to solve this problem that I'm seeing? And you had your aha moment, something you were passionate about. Then you started doing it. And this is a huge, huge lesson also to start, even though you're not 100% ready. Everyone thinks, if I have my website's perfect and my business idea is perfect and I have everything lined up, and then you start and you're like, okay, that's it. No. Start anyway. Start with what you got. And then see what happens, see what sticks, see where things go. It's number one, it's a better experience, and you're never going to get to having everything perfect anyway. So,
and it's so true. And if I can give another piece of advice, another piece of wisdom, done is better than perfect.
Yes, I love that.
It's never going to be perfect. I have met people that are not networking and not going out there because their website isn't done. Yeah. You don't need a finished website to start marketing your brand. You don't need a plan to start getting out there. I just knew I wanted to help people. And that's how I started to do that, by just creating content.
It's so important.
From there, it just grew organically. I went in, I provided anti-harassment training. And then they liked what I did. And they said, could you come back and help us communicate better? Or can you help us improve our interpersonal skills? And so it just kind of morphed from there. So put yourself in the position to do the work that you want to do, and the rest will kind of come together. I believe that.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
When you were in that role with a young daughter and you didn't realize you were miserable, and looking back, you said you were depressed. It was 10 years, but what was keeping you going and keeping you peaceful and content and like not giving up? But what were you telling yourself, or what were you doing every day to get through all of that stressful time and so you figure out?
Well, I have to say my 1-year-old was a pretty good motivating force.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, failure wasn't an option at this point. I'm a single mom, the only person making money in my family. And, you know, I had to do what I had to do.
Right.
But I'm going to be honest with you, my morale was low and I didn't know why, right? I thought maybe it might've been from the divorce. Maybe it was the struggles of being a single mom, but it really was, I wasn't working in a way that was talking to my passion. I wasn't doing the things that were really speaking to me, which is helping people.
Right.
And so how did I get through it? Listen, there were a lot of tough days. I definitely think spirituality helps, you know, having a sense that there's something bigger than yourself. Even though I didn't know where I was going and I knew I didn't want to stay where I was, there was a part of me that knew that there was something bigger. I just didn't know what.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that was going to look like.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just writing that down. Knowing there's something bigger is huge. And then, and like just sitting in that. So it does get you through the days, whether you have a huge motivator, like a child that you need to support, or
Right.
just a dream that you have, or even if you don't have the dream yet, you're just like, there's something else. I'm going to keep looking for it. If you stop looking, you're not going to find it. But if you can go and do that thing that you're doing every day with, I guess with just integrity and keep your eye on the prize over here, but also do well in what you're doing and just keep showing up and doing all the right things. Eventually you'll figure it out, you know.
Exactly.
And I think, like you said, it's big. Listen, ask yourself the questions and listen to what the answers are, and then honor them, because there's a reason that's coming to you. Yeah.
Yes. Listen to yourself, but also there's a part of ourselves we need to ignore. We don't like being out of our comfort zone. Mm-hmm. We don't like to expose ourselves to rejection. We don't want to be told that your idea stinks. Right. So I think a lot of times we create our own barriers in terms of what we're comfortable with and I honestly think fear is a very big component of being able to get to and achieve our goals. And fear is our own perception of what we think could be the what if, you know, or the potential outcome. And those voices, I would encourage us to ignore, because we don't always give ourselves the right advice.
Yeah, I totally agree. Fear's huge. I was on a webinar a couple of weeks ago with the author. Her name is Barbara Stanny. Now it's Barbara Hewson. She's written a bunch of books on wealth and accumulating wealth, and for women mostly. And she is in her early 70s. And I'm telling you that because she has interviewed hundreds of women over the course of her career to write these books. She's like, I have never met one woman who was not afraid before she did whatever she did. So everyone's thinking, I'm not going to have the fear and then I'll be ready to do it when I'm not afraid anymore. You will always be afraid. You will always be afraid.
You will never be ready.
Yes.
And you will never be ready.
Yes. You're never going to be ready. And no one who's successful ever did it once there was no fear. There's no such thing. She's never talked to one single person like that. And these are millionaires that she's talked to. So the fear is huge. I'm glad you brought that up, ignoring that, because it's like, it's there. It's there to keep you safe. And it's there to keep you from taking a risk, because your ego wants you to be safe and secure and comfortable, because that's easier and safer.
Right. But we don't learn when we stay in that safe space. You know, when we don't push ourselves out of our comfort zone, honestly, we learn the most from our mistakes. We learn from trial and error. We learn from getting kicked in the teeth sometimes.
Yep.
You know, it hurts and it stings, but there's usually a lesson from that. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's what life is about. I was watching a Netflix. I'm sure a lot of people have seen it. Brene Brown.
Yeah.
What was the name of her program? It was unbelievable.
I've seen it. The one on Netflix. I haven't watched it yet, but yes, I know it.
Unbelievable. It's all on courage. And I highly recommend, if anything that we're talking about today in this podcast resonates, to go listen to that as well, because it really is about, you know, building yourself up and having the courage to ignore sometimes that critical voice in our heads, because it's really ourselves that sometimes provide those limitations.
It's almost always ourselves, right?
It's always ourselves.
I mean, think about the people that you love or that support you. No one's ever like, yeah, you probably can't do it. Those people outside usually aren't telling you, no, it's yourself that's saying, like, I'm afraid.
It's so true.
I can't, right?
It's so true. And we always talk about communication as being an important skill in life, how we communicate with our colleagues, how we communicate with our spouse or our children. But how about how we communicate with ourselves?
Mhm.
And we talk to ourselves all day long. I know I do.
Right.
And
I think it's like
sometimes
60,000, between 50 and 70,000 thoughts a day, something like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Right. And some of them are toxic and they're inaccurate and they're negative and they don't serve us well. If we grew up in an abusive home, if we grew up with a critical parent, those things become internal. And we don't even realize that we have this voice in our head. Sometimes it's not even our own voice. Right. It could be the voice of a parent or a voice of a spouse that's extra critical, but that voice is in there. And that could be what is stopping you from really understanding what your passion is. Yep. You know, so I say quiet that voice a little bit and focus on really what's going to feed your soul, right? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, when you can find that, it doesn't feel like work anymore.
It's so true.
It's just it's pleasurable. It brings joy, and that's truly what I feel in it.
When you find that thing that does bring you pleasure and joy, it's the thing that, like you said, you love doing every day and you get joy from it. But then that ends up making you money because you're so. It comes from a place of a soul, and it comes from a place of truth and integrity and honoring what you're good at. It's not an accident that all these other things come and make it easier for you to live your life. Yeah, for sure.
It's so true. I know a lot of people that make a lot of money that are extremely unhappy because it's not really feeding. You know, they went into it purely for the dollar signs. I believe if you find something that brings passion to you and really speaks to your soul, the money will come.
Yeah.
Right. You got to have strategy behind it, but the money will ultimately come if you strategize it well.
Yeah. There's a book called Do What You Love, The Money Will Follow. I read it years ago. I forget who wrote it, but that was a good one. I read a million. I have to start making a list. But it's so true. It's true. Yeah, it is true. Okay. So what would you say? So we talked about staying happy and peaceful along the way. What would you say for someone searching for, well, you kind of already hit on this a little bit. So there's just to talk to the younger generation, people that are just graduating college or kind of maybe in their early 30s, and they're searching for a meaningful career where they can use their strengths. So they're in a job like you were, kind of like, I'm kind of bored, or I love it, but it's not everything I want. What would you say to those people?
Well, I mean, listen, you the first thing you said when you started this podcast is you commented on the progression of a journey of success. And if you go online and you look at what success looks like, it's not a line. Right. It's like this messed up line with curves and curves and turns, and sometimes it goes backwards. So I really believe for people that are just getting out of college and maybe are feeling a little bit lost in terms of where they see themselves going, I really believe you are where you need to be right now, right? We can't just get out of college and just do great work right away. We have to gain experience along the way. So even if you don't believe that what you're doing now is your passion, you're meant to learn things from this experience. So learn what you can from it, whether it's being mentored, whether it's learning a new skill, whether it's just learning about business one-on-one. Really try to be a sponge and try not to be resistant to that. It's very easy for us to say, this job is below me, and I know I'm going to be doing something better along the way. I say embrace every experience that you have and get the most out of it. Yeah. And also remember that this doesn't mean that this is not your endpoint. This is just the beginning of your journey. What I spoke 2 years ago at Montclair State University, at their psychology department, and they invited me in to talk about how different ways to leverage a psychology degree. Now, I have a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in marriage and family therapy. And the one thing that I remember telling them, and it's so true, and I wish somebody would have told this to me, is just because you go to school for something doesn't mean you have to actually do that exact trade. Mm-hmm. So I went to school to be a psychotherapist, but what I didn't realize is this degree can help me in many different capacities in life and in business. You don't have to be sitting in an office and providing psychotherapy. You could teach. You could write. You could end up in HR. That's a wonderful career with that type of background. So there's so many, things that positive things that can come out of your degree. And just because you're not doing exactly what you expected to be doing, it doesn't mean you won't eventually get there. And it doesn't mean that maybe your path is meant to be different, and to honor that and to embrace that. And I know that's really hard to do for someone who's young.
Yeah. You're right. And a lot of people say, like, I have a degree, but I'm not doing what I study. But like you said, just because, or it doesn't necessarily mean you have the wrong degree. Like, you had the right degree so that you can do what you're doing now.
Exactly.
Right. But yeah, if you completely flip, I did the same thing. I had a marketing and economics degree, and my senior year, I'm like, I think I want to be a teacher. I'm like, but I can't change my major in my senior year in college. I have to finish this. So then I went and got a master's in teaching. But they both together allowed me to be a trainer in the corporate world. So I could be a business trainer and business teacher instead of teaching in a regular school, which is what I decided to do after I got there. But yeah, that's really important. Not just maybe this isn't the right degree for you. You have the right degree. And maybe you're not doing what you want to do now. That doesn't mean you don't have the right degree to do the next thing. And you chose that for a reason. There's something calling you. And hopefully for most people, it wasn't just money. And there was like, someone told you to do that. Something brought you there to that degree, and that knowledge is going to be useful down the road somewhere for sure. Yeah,
absolutely.
Great point.
Absolutely. And listen, some of us chose to study things that our parents wanted us to study.
A lot of people.
Right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people do that. I know that happened with my father. My father's father was like, you're going to be a doctor. And he went into medical school and never finished because he hated it.
Right.
So sometimes sometimes our journey has a little delay at the beginning because we weren't really honoring what we wanted. We were maybe trying to make others happy. And that in itself is a journey. It takes time and maturity and life experience to be able to really understand what you want out of life. Sometimes you get really clouded by all the other voices in our head, our parents, our siblings, whoever else, So yeah, I think, really listening to yourself and really kind of blocking out external influences is a good first step. And that's hard. And sometimes that requires maybe going into therapy or hiring a life coach. Sometimes those individuals can be just what we need to kind of keep that, laser focused approach and not get sidetracked on what everyone else wants us to do.
I totally recommend that. Yeah. Coaching is like, you can get this laser focus. You can help someone else is reflecting back to you what you're seeing. It's not just you in your head or the people around you who want good things for you, usually either telling you what's not right for you, even though they want the best for you, or someone that is just saying can't really help you because they're not in your head and they're not seeing what you're seeing or feeling what you're feeling. I definitely think I've had some great coaches and those experiences definitely have changed my trajectory in my life. So I definitely would recommend it. Therapy too.
Definitely. I'm a big believer. I mean, obviously I'm by training, I'm a therapist, but I it's funny. There's always been a stigma around talking to someone about our feelings. We're very quick to go to the doctor when our arm hurts or our head hurts, but when things don't feel right internally, emotionally, we tend to resist, getting help for that. And therapy is one of those things that if anyone is looking for a therapist, you always want to shop around. That's one thing I want to give advice to. Shop around. Just like you don't go to the first doctor you meet, you want to shop around. You want to find someone that you feel that connection with. You want to find someone that you can be vulnerable with. Therapy won't work if you don't work the process. If you show up and you expect them to fix you, it's going to be a royal disappointment. If you go in there being fully transparent, that's when the magic happens. You got to let it all on the table, right? And not everybody feels comfortable with each therapist to be able to do that. So, whether it's a coach or a therapist, shop around, do your diligence, interview them.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Make sure that it's a right fit for you, because if it isn't, you're not going to want to go.
It's a great point. And it's expensive. So you might as well have someone to,
It can be. It can be. But I look at it as an investment in yourself.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying, dude, I'm saying it's your money, it's your investment. So make sure it fits well for you. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, final question for you. I think you would make, I'm trying to remember what you said about what you wish yes, I do know, what you wish you learned earlier in your life or career. I remember you mentioned something already. Is there anything else you want to add or repeat what you mentioned earlier?
I was really hard on myself when I first got out of college. I had all these ambitions and goals, and I wanted to do big things. And I realized very quickly that there's a process to our journey. There's a reason why people don't become CEOs at age 21. You need life experience. You need job experience. So for those of us for those of you on the call that are freshly new out of school, or even in your 20s and you're just, struggling to find purpose and meaning, just realize that life is a journey. And I know I've said this before and I've said it twice, I'll say it again. You are meant to be where you are meant to be. There's something you're meant to learn from where you are right now. So soak it in. Get the most out of where you are right now, because where you are right now is going to help you in the next phase where you end up. And I think that if somebody would have told that to me, I would have probably had less panic attacks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have fallen into a depressive hole, right? I probably would have embraced I would have been more easygoing about it.
Yeah, more open and more like.
And so that's my biggest advice: is take a deep breath and relax about it and enjoy the journey. I didn't enjoy the journey as much as I should have, because I was so focused on where is this all going? Where is this all going? That I wasn't in the moment. I wasn't really present.
I know. It's
right?
So hard. It's so hard to do that.
It's hard.
You think, if I knew, then I could just do this or that. It's like, oh, that's the secret of it. You're not going to know. So you have to trust, and you have to do the right thing, and you have to listen, and you have to absorb, and you have to engage in what you're doing. And then you have to trust the process. And it's really hard, especially if and
that's hard to do.
Yeah, it's really hard.
It's hard, especially if we're type A personality, especially if we tend to be very controlled, detail oriented type people. That's a very hard thing to grab onto, because it's very fluffy and there's no real concrete thing there. But again, I think that's where our spirituality and really comes into play. Just understand that something bigger than you is at play here, and to get the most out of where you are right now.
Love it. So true. You said some awesome things, Taryn. I'm going to be quoting you in in the notes for the podcast. And when I write a book someday, your interview will be in there, because you have so much good wisdom and insight. And I really appreciate it. And I know it's going to help. At least I do this because if one person hears it and goes, I get that now.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
It's why I created this podcast, because I, at 22, didn't have people the same as you. Maybe you had someone, but you're not hearing those messages. You weren't ready to hear them or whatever. Yeah, hearing it at that age would have been, it would have made things a little bit easier. I'm not saying life's not going to be hard and you don't have to work hard, but it doesn't all have to be this gritty, grit your teeth and be miserable until you get where you want to go. It's be open to it. Enjoy the
trust the process. I know this sounds really cliche, but it does end up working out. Things do end up have a way of working themselves out. And sometimes, we have to kind of practice that sort of inner peace until it gets there, right? Because we can really, again, be our worst enemy with the stuff that we tell ourselves.
You said it brilliantly. You said you're meant to be exactly where you are here now. So just embrace it. And that's the truth. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. Whatever that means, take it in. And the sooner, I will say this and add to what you said, the sooner you accept that, the easier your life's going to be. It's
so true. Well, it does, because it alleviates the pressure of having to do it all.
Right.
I do believe there's something bigger than ourselves. And, sometimes we, what is it? God laughs when we make plans. Isn't that's kind of the same?
Yeah. Just make plans.
Right.
Yeah. I forget what the quote is. Yeah.
Right. And it's good to have a plan.
Yeah.
But it's also good to be flexible, because we don't know what life will bring. I didn't anticipate to be divorced. That wasn't part of my life plan. And then all of a sudden I woke up, I was a single mom with a 1-year-old, and I had to pivot my life. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because if I would have stayed in an unhappy marriage, there would have been a whole slew of other issues, and I probably wouldn't have been where I am now.
Right.
But there's just, again, just trust the process. You really, and connect yourself with people that think that way and have like-minded views about that. Sometimes we surround ourselves around people that don't say things or serve us well, right? So we want to put ourselves around people that are positive and that are going to build ourselves up too.
Totally agree. Yeah, the sooner you can do that, the better. It's awesome advice too.
And sometimes that means breaking up with someone. That means sometimes making a change in your life.
A lot of times it means that, yes. Don't be afraid to do that either. We could talk a whole nother half an hour on that.
Right. That's a whole nother conversation.
Thank you, Taryn. It was so nice to talk.
You're welcome, Julie. Thank you.
Great lessons. And I know it's going to help someone somewhere today when they hear this. So thank you. And where can people get a hold of you if they want to? So corporations or individuals, do you still do one-on-one therapy? You just do,
so I no longer practice therapy, but I do offer professional coaching. So if anyone's on this call that it maybe would like to have a one-on-one with me to talk about some of the things that you'd like to work on, goals, how maybe I can help you, help you in your journey. That's something I absolutely can offer. And you can email me at Taryn, my first name, Taryn, at ecbsllc.com. That's my email. You can send me an email. Let me know that, you heard of me through this podcast, and we can schedule a time to connect.
Thank you. I'll put that in the show notes too, so people can get a hold of you, and forever they'll see your information and can connect with you.
Great. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for listening. If you love this content, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or whichever platform you found us on. You can get all my social media links in the description below. Help us keep the momentum going so that every person can live their lives happily, doing work they love.